Book summary: George Orwell's 1984, The World Where Truth Was Forbidden. In the world created by George Orwell, what is at stake is not merely the freedom of the people, but the very definition of reality. In 1984's, everything a human being thinks, feels, or remembers belongs to the party, and the party is the sole source of truth. The story begins in a bleak and grey London, the capital of the superstate called Oceania, where the buildings are plastered with posters bearing the face of a stern man with an impassive expression. Below his portrait, a phrase is repeated like a national prayer: "Big Brother is watching you." This is not merely a warning. It is a sentence that dictates the rhythm of every citizen's life, a constant reminder that there is no escape and no refuge, not even within one's own mind. If you believe that freedom begins in the mind, and that thought is the most powerful form of resistance, subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Because here, every story is a fight against oblivion. Among these millions of nameless faces is Winston Smith, an ordinary, frail, and quiet man who works at the Ministry of Truth. His job is to erase the past. Every day, he rewrites articles, alters dates, changes declarations, and destroys documents, ensuring that the party never makes mistakes and that history bends to the present. When information ceases to be useful, it is swallowed by a small opening called the memory hole, which sends the papers into eternal incinerators. The past is infinitely destroyed and remade, resulting in a world where no one can prove that anything happened differently from what the party claims. Winston performs his duties mechanically, but something within him still resists. He feels a deep restlessness, a doubt that torments him in silence. Oceania is governed by a political system called Ingsoc, or English socialism, and divided into three castes: the party's inner core, which holds absolute power; the outer party, to which Winston belongs; and the rest of the population, the proles, who are kept in ignorance and poverty. Surveillance is total. In every home, there is a telescreen, a device that broadcasts non-stop propaganda and speeches, but which also watches, listens, and reports. Nothing escapes, not gestures, not murmurs, not expressions. Even thoughts can be considered a crime. And for this purpose, there is the thought police, a secret force that identifies, arrests, and eliminates anyone who displays doubt, emotion, or individuality. Winston lives in a small, deteriorating apartment where the metallic sound of broadcasts invades the environment day and night. There, in a corner where he believes he cannot be seen, he decides to commit the greatest crime of all: writing a diary. He doesn't know for whom he writes, nor what he hopes to achieve, but he feels he needs to record something true before everything disappears. His words are a desperate attempt to preserve his own humanity, to prove to himself that he is still capable of thought. As he writes, he recalls fragments of his childhood, moments when the world was still imperfect, but real. The memory of a time when love, loyalty, and truth existed. The party, however, controls not only actions, but the language itself. The official language, called Newspeak, is being gradually reduced. With every edition of the dictionary, words are eliminated, meanings are erased, and expressions are simplified until it becomes impossible to articulate complex thoughts. Those without words have no ideas, and those without ideas cannot rebel. This is the logic of perfect domination. A populace incapable of imagining what freedom is will never fight for it. Winston understands this, and that is why fear is mixed with his anger. He knows that one day, if he is discovered, he will be arrested, tortured, and erased from history. In the oppressive routine of the Ministry of Truth, there are moments when all employees must attend a session called the 2 Minutes Hate. During this ritual, images of the party's enemies are displayed on the screens, and the crowd is encouraged to shout, curse, and revile with fury. It is a collective catharsis, a spectacle of controlled hatred. Winston participates like everyone else, but deep down, he feels repulsion. He observes the faces distorted by rage, the shouts of adoration when the image of Big Brother appears, and he realizes how fear and devotion become confused. In this world, loving the leader and hating the enemy are two sides of the same obedience. One day, while performing one of his tasks, Winston notices a woman working in another sector. She has dark hair and an attentive gaze. At first, he is suspicious of her. Any approach, any shared glance could mean denouncement. But something in him senses she is different. This feeling grows until the day she stumbles in front of him, and discreetly slips him a piece of paper. The note contains just 3 words: "Bo, I love you." Winston feels his heart race, not just from desire, but from terror. Love is an act of rebellion, and the simple fact of receiving it is already grounds for execution. Freedom begins in the mind, and that thought is the most powerful form of resistance. Subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. Because here, every story is a fight against oblivion. They begin meeting in secret, first in remote locations, then in a rented room above an old shop in the Prole district. It is a precarious refuge, but for a few hours, it becomes the only place where they are free. There, Winston and Julia become what the party fears most: 2 individuals who love without permission. Each meeting is a silent scream against the system, a reminder that life still exists outside of obedience. They talk about the past, about what they heard from their parents and grandparents, about the old songs that are no longer allowed. They laugh, embrace, and allow themselves to believe in hope. But in Oceania, nothing remains secret for long. The surveillance is invisible and total. Fear is the true ruler. Winston senses that something is about to happen, but he cannot stop. It is as if, in challenging the party, he had finally found a meaning for existence. Beneath the rebellion, there is a naive faith that truth can resist. However, what he doesn't yet know is that the enemy is already watching him. The party does not just control the present. It anticipates the future. Every step Winston takes is already foreseen. Every word, every emotion, every mistake. What began as an act of courage is about to become the start of his destruction. The web of lies and control slowly closes in, and Winston will discover that the worst prison has no bars, no walls, and no cells. It exists within the mind, and it is built with fear, guilt, and silence. Winston and Julia's love grows like a flame lit amid the wind. Each meeting is a desperate attempt to prove that something human still exists in a world that has forgotten how to feel. In the simple room above the antique shop, the distant sound of sirens and the hum of the telescreens mix with the rare silence of a space without eyes. They speak in whispers, as if the air could betray them, and in every word there is the weight of a secret. Julia does not care about revolutions. She just wants to live, to love, to allow herself a little pleasure amid the monotony imposed by the party. Winston, however, feels that there is something greater, something that must be challenged. He believes that the love between them is more than a feeling. It is a form of resistance, a political act, a silent rebellion. The party prohibits any form of true intimacy because affection creates loyalty outside of state control. Marriages are arranged and supervised. Pleasure is seen as weakness, and desire as a crime. Winston and Julia know this, but the more the oppression surrounds them, the more intense the need to escape becomes. Every touch is a victory against fear. Every kiss is a denial of obedience. They talk about an impossible future, dreaming of a time when they could walk the streets holding hands without being punished. But deep down, they know that the freedom they experience is fragile, temporary, and monitored. In the midst of this constant danger, a figure emerges that seems to offer hope. O'Brien, an influential member of the inner party, approaches Winston discreetly. For months, Winston observes him, trying to decipher whether he is an ally or an enemy. O'Brien is intelligent, charismatic, and enigmatic. In an unexpected meeting, he gives Winston an address and invites him to visit, saying only that he shares the same doubts and desires. For Winston, that moment is like a sign. For the first time, he believes he is not alone, that there is a secret organization fighting the system, a force called the Brotherhood. Whoa. When Winston and Julia visit O'Brien at his home, they are surprised by a luxurious environment, completely different from the misery they live in. The place is silent, clean, illuminated, and for an instant, it seems like another world. O'Brien switches off the telescreen, an unthinkable act for any ordinary citizen, and offers wine, something Winston had never tasted. He speaks confidently, quotes the rebel leader Emmanuel Goldstein, and describes a resistance network working in the shadows. Winston and Julia swear loyalty, promising to do anything for the cause, destroy, deceive, sacrifice, as long as the party is defeated. O'Brien accepts them, with a look that blends understanding and something deeper, something Winston cannot identify. For weeks, Winston feels transformed. He believes he is part of something bigger, a fight for truth and memory. Hope keeps him steady, even as the work becomes heavier and the control more rigorous. He begins reading a secret book, delivered by an unknown messenger, which explains the structure of the world and the logic of power. The text says that the endless wars do not exist to defeat enemies, but to keep society in constant fear and submission. That the party's objective is not well-being nor justice, but pure power, total control over body and mind. While reading, Winston feels a mixture of revelation and despair. Everything he suspected is true. The party doesn't just want obedience, it wants to possess people's souls. It wants to control even the memory of what is real. Julia listens silently, sometimes sleepy, sometimes indifferent. For her, what matters is that they are together, still alive, still capable of feeling. For Winston, this is not enough. He wants to understand. He wants to fight. He wants to prove that there is something the party cannot dominate. But what he does not know is that every word read, every thought written, every whisper exchanged has already been predicted. The system is perfect, and the illusion of freedom is just part of the game. One day, when the sound of the streets seems more distant and the room is immersed in a strange tranquility, Winston wakes up to a voice that does not come from the window or the door, but from the wall. "Weiner, you are dead." The sound is cold, metallic, and unemotional. He looks around and sees the source of the nightmare. Behind the picture hanging on the wall, there is a hidden telescreen. In seconds, the room is invaded. Men in black uniforms. "Break down the door!" screams Echo. Julia is dragged away, and Winston tries to resist but is overpowered. Old Mr. Charrington, the owner of the shop where it all began, appears before him. His face is no longer the same. The fragile and gentle appearance vanishes, revealing an agent of the thought police. Everything was a trap from the beginning. The love, the hope, the rebellion, every step carefully monitored. O'Brien, the man who promised freedom, is also there. He observes Winston with the same calm gaze as always, and for the first time, Winston understands what that look concealed. He is taken to the Ministry of Love, Mini-Love, the most feared place in Oceania. The walls are white, the lights never go out, and the air seems charged with pain. Winston is thrown into a cold cell, unaware of whether days or weeks have passed. Time ceases to exist. What he believed to be the awakening of consciousness is now only the beginning of oblivion. Hope turns into despair, and despair into surrender. What the party does not destroy with violence, it destroys with fear. There, Winston will understand that the worst form of imprisonment is not physical captivity, but the annulment of the mind itself. He will learn that absolute power does not need to kill the body to defeat the spirit, and when the truth is completely erased, only the obligatory love for Big Brother will remain. In the Ministry of Love, there is no time, no day or night, no silence that is not born of fear. The place where Winston is kept is cold, illuminated by a white light that never goes out, and pain is the only certainty. He is interrogated, beaten, humiliated, and every blow is not just physical, it is mental. The goal is not to extract confessions, but to destroy identity, erase memory, and break the soul. O'Brien is always there, serene, patient, observing like a teacher facing a student who needs to learn what is real. In every session, Winston is forced to admit crimes he did not commit, betrayals that never happened, and thoughts he never had. At first, he tries to resist, tries to cling to the truth, tries to tell himself that 2 + 2 = 4, but O'Brien smiles, and the smile is more painful than the shock. O'Brien explains that the party seeks neither wealth, nor happiness, nor order, only power. Power for power's sake. He says that the objective is not to free people, but to dominate them completely, controlling not only the body, but the mind. The party's true triumph will be when no one is capable of thinking anything that contradicts it. Winston tries to protest, attempts to say that there is something inviolable inside every human being, something that can never be destroyed. O'Brien calmly responds, like someone reciting an ancient lesson. The human being is infinitely malleable. One only needs to break him the right way. And that is what he does, little by little, with patience, with method, with pleasure. The torture sessions repeat until Winston loses all sense of reality. The electric shock makes him lose consciousness. The questions mix with delusions, and the answers no longer matter. He says what O'Brien wants to hear, because he no longer knows what is true. His body weakens, his mind fragments, and fear becomes the only thought remaining. He begins to accept that maybe the party is right. Maybe the truth is only what they say it is. Maybe 2 + 2 really can be 5. After a long time, O'Brien changes his tone. He no longer needs to shout or strike. He speaks like a friend. He explains that Winston is not hated but cured. He says that true love is the love for the party, and that one day, Winston too will love Big Brother. Winston listens and feels a coldness that does not come from the room, but from the void inside him. He wants to believe that he still loves Julia, that there is still a part of himself that resists, but that memory begins to fade. He dreams of her sometimes, of the smell of her hair, of her voice whispering through the city noises, and wakes up with the feeling that all of it belongs to another life, a life that never happened. O'Brien knows this. He perceives what remains and decides that the time has come to eliminate the last resistance. He takes Winston to a place everyone knows by name, but few have seen. Room 101. The end of everything is there. O'Brien says, "It is the place where every prisoner faces what he fears most. For some, it is fire. For others, darkness. For Winston, the dread is more primal. It is rats, starving, ravenous, the sound of their claws scraping metal." O'Brien places an iron cage before Winston's face, and inside it, 2 rodents squirm, trying to escape. The sound is deafening, the smell is unbearable, and Winston's mind collapses. He screams, desperate, and in that instant reveals what the party expected to hear. He begs them to do it to Julia, not to him. He implores them to take her in his place, to let her suffer in his place, that the destruction fall upon her. The love that resisted, the last spark of humanity, is extinguished in a single cry. O'Brien smiles, and silence returns to fill the room. The re-education is complete. Winston is no longer a man. He is a shadow molded by fear. When he is released, no one recognizes him. He walks the streets of London like a body breathing out of habit. The sky is always grey. The houses remain in ruins, and the voices of the telescreens continue to repeat the same messages of victory. Winston spends his days in a cafe called Dystopia. Chestnut Tree, always sitting in the same spot, drinking the same bitter gin, watching people without truly seeing them. The world feels distant, and he feels an emptiness that even the alcohol cannot fill. One day, he meets Julia. For an instant, their eyes meet. She is different, her face paler, her gestures slow, her gaze dull. They talk quickly, exchanging a few words that sound hollow, as if coming from an old script. Both confess that they betrayed each other, and there is no guilt, no pain, no anger. Only the acknowledgement that something was lost forever. As they part, Winston understands that love has also been rewritten, that the memory he had of her now belongs to the party. Later, sitting in his cafe, he watches the screen announcing a new military victory. Oceania has defeated the enemy, and the streets fill with applause. He feels an emotion rise from his chest, a strange warmth, almost joy. He looks at Big Brother's face, with his firm eyes and dark mustache, and tears slowly stream down his face. In that instant, Winston understands what O'Brien meant. He doesn't just obey, he believes. He doesn't just fear, he loves. Winston's mind dissolves into a silent peace. The pain disappears, doubt is erased, and only the certainty remains that Big Brother is real, eternal, and infallible. The last line dividing man from slave is wiped away with a smile. Winston looks at the screen and feels pride. Finally, he loves Big Brother. Time in Oceania is no longer counted in days, nor in seasons. Time is measured by the party's announcements, by the endless speeches that fill the air, and by the lies that become truths before they are even questioned. Winston is now part of this rhythm, an empty man who breathes without purpose. He lives in a small government-provided apartment, performs simple tasks, and repeats the party's phrases as naturally as he breathes. The past is a blur, the future an illusion, and the present is the only possible reality. He feels no pain, no love, nothing but the tranquility that comes from total submission. The streets of London are covered in posters exalting power and victory. Big Brother's face smiles on every corner, and the phrase, "Big Brother is watching you," is repeated with pride, not fear. Winston walks among the crowds, and what once seemed like oppression now sounds like security. He believes that surveillance is protection, control is care, and obedience is freedom. The party won. Not just over him, but over reality. What was impossible is now logical. What was absurd is now natural. What was crime is now faith. In the Chestnut Tree Cafe, where he spends most of his days, Winston sits at his usual table. The smell of gin and smoke fills the air, and the distant sound of patriotic music echoes as a constant backdrop. He reads the newspaper, plays chess alone, and watches people enter and exit with the same blank stare. Sometimes he tries to recall fragments of something he doesn't quite understand. A soft voice, a laugh, a face with dark hair. He strains, but the memories dissolve before they form. The mind, now reshaped, rejects everything uncertain. When a thought approaches doubt, instinct corrects it. Suddenly, the sound of the telescreens invades the room with urgent news. Oceania's army has won a decisive battle against the enemy. Everyone stands up, applauds, shouts Big Brother's name, and Winston, without thinking, joins them. His heart races, tears well up, and an uncontrollable joy dominates him. He feels a genuine love, a pure pride, something he had long believed himself incapable of feeling. He looks at the face projected on the screen, the face that dominates all the walls, and whispers in silence, "I love Big Brother." This simple and devastating sentence is the final period on a journey that began with the search for truth. The man who once wanted to preserve the past, who dreamed of freedom, who risked his life for a forbidden love, now bows before the power that destroyed him. The resistance that existed within him was dissolved, not by force, but by the implacable logic of domination. The party did not just win, it rebuilt him. Winston became what the system always wanted. A human being who not only obeys but believes, who not only fears but loves the oppressor. Outside, the war continues, but it no longer matters who the enemy is. The enemy changes names, history changes meaning, and no one notices anymore. Truth is a disposable concept, molded according to the needs of the moment. What matters is that the party is eternal. O'Brien was right from the start. Freedom is not the power to choose. It is accepting what you are told and smiling. Love is not a feeling. It is an imposed devotion. Thought is not a right. It is a concession. Winston observes the glass of gin on the table, the murky liquid symbolizing oblivion. He raises it to his lips and tastes the bitter but comforting flavor. The sound of the telescreen announces a new message, another victory, another promise of prosperity, another reminder that Big Brother is infallible. He smiles. The mind that once fought against control now finds peace in it. And it is in this instant that the reader comprehends the true horror of 1984. The party's power is not just in dominating the body, but in shaping thought, in rewriting reality until rebellion itself becomes impossible. The regime's triumph is not eliminating enemies, but turning every citizen into an accomplice. Winston's end is not death, it is complete surrender, the dissolution of the self. His mind has been absorbed by the system, and with that, the system becomes invincible. Thought is the most powerful form of resistance. Subscribe to the channel and hit that like button, because here, every story is a fight against oblivion. George Orwell did not just write a story about a dark future, but a mirror of the present. A warning about the power that lies hold when repeated with conviction. About the danger of accepting the comfort of obedience in exchange for freedom. 1984 is more than a novel. It is a prophecy that continues to be fulfilled. It reminds us that control begins in words, grows on screens, and ends in the mind. And when the mind is conquered, no revolution is possible. Winston's gaze remains fixed on the screen, where Big Brother's face smiles with serenity. Tears stream down his face, and he feels a deep relief. Inside him, there is no conflict left, no pain, no doubt. Only love, the perfect love. The love the party demands, the love that destroys everything human. And as the sound of the voices echoes in chorus, the final truth reveals itself. He loved Big Brother.